So, are you a conspiracy theorist or a coincidence theorist? Let's find out. Question 1. Hurricane Erin. Very few people know that there was a hurricane roughly the same size as the British Isles just over the horizon from New York when the Twin Towers came down in 2001. Inexplicably, it took 13 years for this satellite image to be released on mainstream TV.
Why weren't people given a warning that there's this Hurricane Erin there?
If you look at the Hurricane Erin data, all this talk of climate change, whether it's man-made, whether it's sunspots, whether it's whatever it is, you have to factor in what happened with Hurricane Erin because that is categorically clear evidence of some type of weather control.
That's another story.
We've got 4 morning weather outlooks from 9/11.
None of them on their weather maps show Hurricane Erin.
In fact, if you look at one of the weather maps, you can see it says rough seas on it, but it doesn't show the hurricane.
Weather over Manhattan is nice as can be.
We could see New York City and the smoke from the fires. Our prayers and thoughts go out to all the people there and everywhere else. Here I'm looking up and down the East Coast to see if I can see anything else. And to the people in Washington.
And Frank, that's an accurate assessment.
And I hope that the people responsible are caught and brought to justice as soon as possible. But first, our prayers and condolences to all involved. And I just wanted the folks to know that their city still looks very beautiful from space. I know it's very difficult.
This is the morning of 9/11 where he's saying this. And he doesn't notice that he has to aim his camera to avoid the bands of the hurricane.
For New Yorkers, your city still looks great from up here.
So, was Hurricane Erin there by pure coincidence? Or was it something to do with 9/11? Question 2. The Salisbury poisonings. In 2018, the Russians were accused of poisoning this young lady and her father in Salisbury using a deadly nerve agent called Novichok. They were both critically ill in hospital afterwards, and then out of the blue this conversation was aired on Russian TV.
Все нормально у тебя?
Нормально, все хорошо.
Смотри, если я завтра получу визу, я к тебе в понедельник прилечу. Ну, вот.
Визу никто не даст, Вик.
Ну и, в общем, я тоже так думаю. Все, ладно. Вот,
Скорее всего.
Нет, да, тут если дадут, то мне надо, чтобы ты сказала, что могу я тебя видеть или нет, сказала слово «да».
Ну, я думаю, нет. Тут сейчас ситуация
вот
такая.
Все, я знаю.
Потом разберемся.
Я все знаю.
Потом, лучше,
все,
да. Беремся, давай потом уже. Все хорошо, короче, там уже будет видно, там подальше.
У тебя это твой телефон.
Это временный, знаешь, такой. То есть,
понятно, все. Все хорошо.
То есть все нормально, а там будет видно по ходу, разрешим. Просто тут ситуация, сама знаешь, какая.
Все
хорошо, короче.
Все, ладно.
Все хорошо, все решаемо, все поправляются, все живые. Вот.
Ясно. У папы все нормально?
Все нормально, сейчас отдыхает, спит. У всех здоровье нормально, у никого непоправимых вещей нету. Все, я скоро выписываю, все окей.
Ну все, давай, целую, все.
Now you may think that this conversation was staged. I mean, we don't know for sure whose voice this really is. However, within 24 hours, the BBC then reported that both of them were now recovering in hospital, and indeed they both eventually made full recoveries. So, here's the question. Did they both simultaneously make miraculous recoveries from this deadly nerve agent after the newsreel was broadcast? Or was there something slightly dodgy going on here? Question 3. Stephen Hawking. He had a disease with a life expectancy of less than 4 years. Now, there is one other person in the world who lived just over 20 years with the same condition as Stephen Hawking. And if you look at these pictures, I would contend that the first two are almost certainly him. So he does appear to have survived this horrible disease for a long time. As for the rest of the pictures, I'll let you decide. I'm at the very least a bit surprised that he couldn't afford a better dentist in later life. So take a closer look now at these two pictures and see if you think it's the same person. Note that the Stephen on the right is at least 10 years older than the Stephen on the left, despite having more youthful skin. Look closely at the teeth as well. Stephen was supposed to have outlived the longest other survivor in the world by a factor of nearly 3. If you work out the chi-squared probability of this, it would certainly include a lot of leading zeros after the decimal point. So the question is, did he get lucky and outlive his illness by 3 times over? Or is there something going on here and these pictures are not actually all of the same person? Question 4, a quick one. The tabloid story goes that Lee Rigby was murdered by these 2 guys in 2013. One Michael Adebolajo and the other one Michael Adebolawe. Both of these names have the word Ebola embedded in them, so is this another coincidence or some kind of ritualistic clue about the outbreak of Ebola that followed the next year? Question 5. Okay, this is the official press photograph following the Manchester Ariana concert attack. Note they didn't use the word bombing for some reason. No, this was an attack. Now this bomb allegedly killed 22 people and injured over 500. Yet you don't see any children, no paper, no scorch mark in the centre where the bomb went off. One of the victims just to the right of where the bomb was alleged to have gone off appears to be using his mobile phone. You can go on and on. See how many oddities in this that you can find. But for the purpose of this quiz, I'm going to concentrate on just one thing. This was a nuts and bolts bomb which had to be extremely powerful to have killed and maimed so many people, yet the bank of lights at the back of the room was completely undamaged. So did that bank of lights just get lucky? Or does this look like something that's been staged? Question 6. If you haven't noticed, footballers have been recently dropping like flies in the middle of the pitch, clutching their hearts. We've also got this infestation of defibrillator machines all over the place now. But I thought this epidemic was about respiratory issues, yet I see no oxygen masks at the ready anywhere. And then there's this absolutely disgusting ad from the Heart Foundation where they seem to be mocking the point. To add to this, temporary mortuaries are now going up left, right and centre across the country, and they are planned to stay in use until 2025. Yet this epidemic is reported to be going away now. So what on earth are they planning for? They almost seem to be anticipating an epidemic of clot shots rather than folks struggling to breathe. So is this all just a coincidence, or are we going to see the big one this year? You know, the one that Bill Gates promised us from day one. Question 7. In 2018 and 2019, the BBC ran 2 pandemic simulation exercises. There was the Hazelmere study in 2018, where they simulated the spread of a killer disease throughout a local community of volunteers. And then there was the school study in 2019, which seemed to be all about showing you how you become invincible when you wear a mask, despite the fact that our PM told us that you most certainly don't. I mean, as long as you wear pants, nobody can smell a thing when you break wind, right? So get yourself a sick bag, and I'll make these clips as short as possible, as they certainly make me feel unwell.
Hazelmere, I need your help. Now, I'm Dr. Hannah Fry, I'm a mathematician, but that's not the reason why I need your help. You could help to save thousands of lives without even really trying. Now, believe it or not, the #1 killer in the last 100 years is flu. Not normal seasonal flu, but a pandemic of flu. And it's killed up to 100 million people and spread around the world 4 times in the last century. And there is every reason to believe that that could happen again. So how can you help with that? Well, with the BBC, I'm making a programme about how pandemics spread and, crucially, what we can do to slow that spread down. So if you... It's still going.
It is still
Okay.
going.
If you are not a zombie. Could you stand up for us? How many people are there?
Oh, we've got
just
some.
3 people who managed to escape the zombie episode. You also can't target people directly with your zombie jams. That wasn't part of the rules. Okay, everybody sit down. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Now, we can do this again, but this time we can use some kind of zombie defences.
Exactly, yeah. So over here, there's going to be some protection against infection. And these people are going to be completely protected.
Okay, so those of you who you've got protective masks under your seat. And this makes you completely immune from zombie infection.
It does, yep.
So to keep this quiz simple, let's not dwell on all the synchronicities here. Let's just focus on one simple fact. In February 2020, the BBC reported the first case in the UK. Guess where? Hazelmere. The same place they did their simulation in 2018. Just a coincidence or a conspiracy? Question 8. The wave naming thingy. So the 4 main waves seem to have been named after our favourite foods. Then a few people got talking about this on social media, and the next thing you know, they switched over to using silly Greek alphabet letters. The conspiracists were quick to lock on to the fact that Omicron was an anagram of moronic, and in fact there is actually no other anagram of Omicron other than moronic. But this one seems a bit cleverer to me. However, I think this video game from 1999 is, how should I put it, even more interesting.
Wake up, people of Omicron. Reshev and his corrupt government are lulling you to sleep in order to control you better. They have transformed you into puppets that are manipulated by X and the demons. Join the awakened ones and rise up to fight for your freedom. Together, we can win. All the inhabitants of Omicron are now awakened. The trusts have been destroyed. The last skirmishes are ending in the streets. We have had an extraordinary victory, which our descendants will recount from generation to generation, and we owe this victory to you, Nomad Soul. You helped us win back our freedom.
So is there something odd going on with these names, or is it all just a coincidence again? Okay, that's your 8 questions done, and here's your score analysis. 0 conspiracies, so all coincidences. You are a perfectly normal, well-balanced human being. You understand that the probability of your very existence was at least 1 trillion to 1 against, so similar coincidences during your lifetime are just to be expected. Your generous nature means that you will do anything for the greater good, including locking your grandma in a small room for weeks on end to preserve her good health, and of course taking medication from a nice man called Bill. You will be a great servant to the new order, and your life will be both happy and prosperous, although you will spend a lot of it living in fear of catching a cold. 1 to 3 conspiracies. You're still okay, but do have some worrying tendencies, and if you don't address these right now, you're in danger of developing unhealthy and dangerous viewpoints. For self-treatment, I recommend a minimum of 10 hours on social media every day, mixed in with at least 2 hours watching the news. Remember, the people reading the news are all very nice and would never tell you fibs. 4 to 7 conspiracies. You are in serious danger of upsetting a lot of people, as you are incapable of realizing that your truth is something that well-balanced people just don't want to hear. You are in clear need of a full frontal lobotomy, though you could try electric shock treatment first, and then take this test again to see if the condition improves. 8 out of 8 conspiracies. You're a complete nutter. You are using both halves of your brain when you know that you should only be using the good half, and you're simply making up stuff with the bad half. Get therapy now. Right, so the last bit was just a bit of fun from me. In fact, it's probably the only bit of this video that the lunatics in charge of our world asylum would approve of. And why? Well, because I've divided you all into 4 categories, so I've done their job for them. Divide and rule. In fact, with only 12 more questions, each with 4 possible outcomes, I could potentially divide the entire UK population against one another in some way or form. Anyway, all of you have got labels now. You're either a conspiracy theorist or a coincidence theorist. But here's the big deal. Understanding how this world really works might help you make better decisions about your own life and any loved ones who listen to you. But that's it. Whether you're a coincidence nutter or a conspiracy nutter, it does not matter at all. You're all nutters. It's just an opinion. However you look at it, the world is mad. If we all had the same opinions about everything, that might sound like heaven on earth to you and I, but it really wouldn't be. For a start, if everyone was like me, I'd be surrounded by maths nerds and computer geeks, and they'd drive me up the wall. We'd also presumably have the same taste in partners, food, sports, and so on, so we'd all be after the same gal, eating at 2 different restaurants max in town, and be playing 2 or 3 sports at most. Being different is what makes the world worth living in. Having different opinions can even be fun, but right now they're using media very effectively to brainwashing you into thinking the exact opposite. In fact, their opinion is the only one that you are actually allowed to have. And all for the greater good, of course, and all that. So finally, my biggest point. If you take all the crap the loonies are bamboozling us with away from our lives, guess what's left? So, people of Omicron, are you ready to rise up and take this all back again?